I named this channel Bluegrass and the Beatles, but I could have also named it Songs that came out in years ending with three, because I've noticed that when the year ends in three, I tend to like music that came out there. 1923, Louis Armstrong with King Oliver. 1933, Louis Armstrong again. 1943, Benny Goodman, Bill Monroe, Grandpa Jones. 1953, Hank Williams, Bill Monroe. 1963, Bill Monroe, the Beatles, the girl groups. 1973, this album. So, this is the only album by Paul McCartney I've got. So, this story of this was that Paul wanted to start another band called Wings, and he would give the other people chances to sing all those songs, but it very quickly worked out that it was Paul McCartney and Wings. It was Paul McCartney's band. And two of the members quit just before they made this album. And so they decided they wanted to do it somewhere exotic. So they went down to Nigeria, to Lagos, Nigeria. At this time, the only people left in the band was Paul, his wife Linda, who is an okay singer but not that good of a musician. I think maybe Yoko's a better musician, but Linda's a much more mainstream. And Denny Lane, who had been a member of the Moody Blues, he did some hit singles in the mid-60s and finally joined Wings, and he was the most constant non-McCartney member of the Wings. So the three of them went there, and just them did it. After they got back to England, they had some studio musicians. They didn't get the reception they quite wanted in Nigeria. One of the Nigerian musicians accused them of cultural appropriation, trying to steal Nigerian music. So at one point, they were robbed, and amongst the things they took was a bunch of song lyrics and demo tapes of the songs on here. So who knows what was lost that was supposed to be on this album. But as it turned out to be Paul's best album post-Beatles. So let's go into what's on it. So it starts off with the title track, Band on the Run, which is one of his best songs post-Beatles. Just before this, he'd done Live and Let Die, which is a little bit better, I think. But he didn't put it on this album. Then Jet, which is a hard-rocking song. And Bluebird. Oh, I was going to sing the lyrics when I saw it. The first song is Band on the Run. The next one is Jet. And then comes Bluebird. Oh, a nice mellow song. And has a saxophone that a studio musician added to it. Then Mrs. Vanderbilt. And finally, Let Me Roll It. Now, to explain that last song, the breakup of the Beatles was not as amicable as it should have been. And on John's previous album, Imagine, he had a song called How Do You Sleep, where he made fun of Paul. And this is Paul's reply. It's in the style of John Lennon. It has the reverb that John Lennon was doing at the time. It sounds a lot like something John would do. And it's like, don't be mad at me, I'm your friend, kind of thing. So that's the end of side one. So let's look at side two. So here's side two. It's got all the lyrics on one side, and it's a nice picture of the three of them on the other. So, side 2 starts off with Mamunia, a nice mellow song, and then one that's kind of medium between hard and mellow called No Words. And after that, that's kind of controversial. See, Paul had made a single called Helen Wheels, which was a big hit. And so the record company wanted to put it on this, but he didn't want to. So the British version of this does not have it, but my American version does. And on some versions of the early American CDs, it's not listed on the track listing. It's kind of a hidden song in there. Okay, so it's a hard driving, bouncy song though. It's about his off-road vehicle. The next song is called Picasso's Last Words, or in parentheses, drink to me. And then finally, the last song is 1985, which sounds really disco to me. This came out before disco. That's kind of the way that is. So. But you know, with the Beatles, they didn't want singles to have the same stuff that albums had on them. But I think Paul must have lost some of his power by the time this came out, because there are quite a few singles from this album. Let me go over a few of them, tell you what they are. Okay, so first of all, Helen Wheels, as I mentioned, it was a single before the album, and they added it to the album. Then came, and the B-side was called Country Dreamer. And then Jet was a single. It had Jet, it had Mamunia on the B-side of the American pressings, and on the British side it had Let Me Roll It. Okay, the next single was Mrs. Vanderbilt, and the B-side was Blooper. And finally, they made Band on the Run, a single, with, on America, it had 1985, which was his future back then. On the B-side, but in Britain, Zoo Gang was the name of the B-side. It was an instrumental. So, yeah, it's four singles off of this one album. So, as I said, it's probably McCartney's best post-Beatle album. So, worth checking out.